Hello and welcome back to the channel for another of my interviews. Now, as you may know, we've been talking about a lot of, well, I suppose the freedom movement and sovereignty and those sort of things. And a lot of people have been talking, I guess, from their own personal perspective as an individual searching for sovereignty, or they have their own little organisations that do this. And wouldn't it be great if there was somewhere you could go to find out all of this all in one place? I think that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm very pleased to be bringing to you a gentleman called John Gilbert, who is an engineer and doctor, and more importantly for us, one of the founders of the Community Assembly. John, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me here, Richard.
I said in the introduction there that, you know, people are sort of expressing their different methods of understanding common law, freedom, sovereignty, all of that sort of stuff. And from what I understand from our little preamble that we didn't record, is that you are, with your community assembly, sort of gathering all of this into one place. Have I got that right?
You have, yes.
Brilliant. That's my job done then.
You can go home now.
Yeah, that's it. So could you tell us then a little bit about the assembly, what it is and what it means for the likes of the rest of us unwashed?
Well, the assemblies were formed back in 2020. This was around about March, April time. And it was the idea that we had a lot of knowledge, but we couldn't spread it around.
Right.
How do we get that knowledge out to the people that need to know? And how do we protect those people? Because there has to be a way of getting out of the society, which, you know, we got plenty of people telling us now that we don't need to participate anymore. How do we get out of this society and start governing our own lives?
Yes.
And that was the basic idea of the community assembly when we started. The main problem that we had was getting it known. The only way before you came along, Richard, the only way for us to get it out there was to actually go and talk to people face to face, and that is actually a slow progression.
So let me just, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt because people don't like it when I interrupt, and I'd rather give you the time to talk. But you said, I mean, you very kindly said there, mentioned my platform, but were other platforms not sort of listening to you and presenting you forward?
No, they weren't. Not at the moment. We have
Right.
just in the last few days, we've had one or two sort of nibbling away to see if we can go on to onto their platform as well.
Yes.
So basically, when you contacted us, you started the ball rolling.
Oh, blimey.
And this seems to be the synchronicity effect that once one person starts to do something, others follow.
Yes. Yes.
So yes, we've had little or no publicity. We've done everything we've had to do everything on a shoestring with volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers, thankfully, that are working their little butts off. And unfortunately, most of them are women, or maybe that's fortunately. I don't know.
I was going to say, why is that unfortunate?
Because I'm represented the men.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
They, yeah, they work well. They're very logical, and when you explain something to them in terms of logic, they get it very quickly.
Right.
Men tend to think themselves as being the logical beast, but in actual fact, women are far better at it. They're far more focused at it. So
You mentioned that before this you were going into the communities. Did you find that? I know the numbers might be a thing, but you're able to sort of talk to people more one to one and carry that conversation. Whereas on platforms like this, whilst you've got perhaps the initial idea going out, it's difficult for people to sort of ask immediate questions. If I don't ask the questions, they've got to sort of either email you or talk within the comments. But surely when you're out in society itself, you know, a huge number of questions must come up that people have that your advocates can answer.
Yeah, I'm all right at it because I'm a Cornishman.
Of course.
Yes, so I can talk. Yes,
Um,
I think I emailed you saying that I can. I've got a lot of donkeys around here with rear legs. I can talk them off.
right.
And there is another chap called Nick Kitchen who is very similar to that. So we can certainly get the message out there. Although I'm not an orator by nature, I rather try to think something at you and then wonder why you're not getting it.
Right. A little bit of the old telepathy business.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to go out and we had to find people, but that was a good thing in a way because we actually don't want people to come on and just listen to what we say.
Hmm.
We want people to go out there and form communities. So we need doers, and it's getting the doers in that we have. We need to reach a broader audience in order to be able to do that, and that's now starting to happen. This is a very spiritual group. We don't tend to deep dive too much. The I mentioned our occupational experts. Well, we do have people who can guide us on the law, and um, somebody you actually, I believe you've already talked to him anyway, which is Mark Horn.
Yes.
Yeah, I met him on a beach about 2 years ago, and it was. If it hadn't been a bloke, it would have been love at first sight because we so agreed with each other. And he was, I took him back. He came back to my place. I showed him some of the diagrams and some of the stuff we're doing, and he realised that it was a completely synchronous thing. So we've been talking to each other ever since. And again, he is what I would term an occupational expert. He can guide us and tell us what to do. The assemblers themselves have been growing steadily. Now, we did make some terrible mistakes to start with. We decided we were going to have local assemblies and spread them everywhere, so that there was no hierarchy, and it failed because people, weren't talking to each other, weren't spreading the information. So then we redid everything so that we've now put in place, whenever we start an assembly now, we always put a regional assembly, which is a county, somewhere along that lines, but it's up to the people themselves to decide. So we put that in first, what we call a regional assembly, and they act as the glue for the rest of the assemblies. So then we start putting the local assemblies in so that people can govern themselves. So I say governance. What they do is they make the representations to the regional assemblies. The regional assemblies then either deal with them or pass them up to us, but they are not in charge. We have what we call facilitators, and they literally do that. They facilitate the wishes of the people.
Yes.
So I always say to people, facilitators want to do that job. You realize you are a servant of the people. You're not governing anything.
So what MPs should be, but have decided they don't want to be.
Exactly. Yeah. I usually say to them that you're the servant of the people. The people in the regional assemblies are the servants of the people. By the time you get to me, I'm lower than a pig's belly because I'm the servant of everybody.
Oh, I'm beginning to feel sorry for you now, John.
Well, I'm trying to play to it.
Yeah. to my better sympathy. So tell me, assembly, of course, is I guess means an assembly of people assembled together.
Yes.
And so how does that practically work? Do they assemble together in village halls, in people's homes, that sort of thing?
Short answer is yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
It has to be a face-to-face contact because if you're we do have a Telegram group. Actually, we have two Telegram groups, one for members and one for non-members, because that's the way that they communicate with each other. The website is purely and simply that's an information site, so that people can get all the information they need, because we put a lot together. We've had people such as Mark Horn who have helped on this one. They put it all together for us.
Here it is.
Um, yeah, that's us. Actually, it looks better on your screen than it does on mine.
Oh right, there you go. No, it's fantastic. You've got all lots and lots of different bits and pieces that go to it, and obviously who we are, how to join, and all the information that you would need.
Yeah.
What, as you would expect on a comprehensive web page or website rather. And I did see a bit by Mark Horn somewhere when I was ploughing through it, but where it is now, I can't, who we are, I think it was.
It is in, yes, it's in Who We Are. And when you go into Who We Are, the first thing you come across is our structure. And that part is where Mark really laid out what we have to do. It's simple things like if you have a community, you'll have to excuse my voice today.
That's all right.
I was talking the hindlegs of the donkey last night. So,
Well, there you go.
yeah. So the when it comes to how do you handle people, well, under natural law, you cannot, if somebody disagrees with what you're doing and is making a nuisance of themselves or breaks natural law, you can't kick them out.
Right, that's a bit of a problem.
It is. You can ask them to leave. You can't punish them. You have to provide them with shelter and water and food, only up to the point where they can make their own. So they have to then go look after themselves. So you can ease them out of your community by saying, you don't want to play with us, we don't want to play with you. Therefore, it's time for you to go and find your own place.
Mm.
But you can't do much more than that. You can ask them to make reparation if they have caused somebody damage, caused somebody loss. That's fine. But again, they can say no. If they say no, then you've got to follow a procedure. So it took a long time to work that procedure out, and Mark Horn pretty much had it down. So he wrote that part for us. But we've had a lot of other experts come in and do it as well. The person that supplied the most for us is no longer alive. He died in 1999.
Oh, right, that's a shame.
It is, but he's still here.
Yes, okay.
He still hits me over the head and tells me to get on with it.
Yes.
Whether you believe in spirituality or not, I can assure you I'm pushed day and night to get all this done. But he has supplied so much information to us, and that we just don't. There aren't many holes in it left now. And what we just recently found out was we now have America coming into this. We have Australia. Sorry, America is in. Australia is in. And New Zealand. And New Zealand have set up assemblies over there, and it almost exactly mirrors ours. And it was a marriage that happened very, very quickly. I mean, you're talking about a couple of months of discussions, and that was it. And that happened on January the 5th of this year.
Wow. Right. Okay.
So they're quite a small country. But they have 20, last time I counted was 28 assemblies over there.
And
So
what are
they've
these?
got-
What are the assemblies comprise of? How many sort of people? I mean, presumably this all changes depending on the area. But
It's,
what sort of numbers are we talking about?
well, you can have one assembly that we have, which has got over 300 people in it. We don't count those people. They are simply members of the assembly.
Mm.
All that we count is the three facilitators that have set the thing up. And they're the ones that we supply the information to. Anybody else can go onto the website. The website's free. We have over 40 different countries going through that website at the moment, and that's on a regular basis. It's been taken into different languages. It's been put into different languages. The main thing with all of this at the moment is that there is a synchronicity of thought around the world. and we have we had to change the name of the Community Assembly of the British Isles to the Community Assembly of British Isles and International Friends because we were getting so many people coming in. And the friends that we've got now, I honestly, it's all over the place, absolutely all over the place. But we've still, we're still a tiny part of the population.
Yes. So I was going to ask you. So I presume the big plan is to grow these assemblies, that more and more people learn about natural law, about sovereignty, and understand and respect one another, and all of this concept, and grow it, so that the vast members of the population, the majority, understand this, so we can change the regime, that we don't live under a penal, tyrannical system that we seem to be living under at the moment. Well, we are living, there's no seeming about it, that we are living under, and then decide as people what we want for ourselves. Is that...
Well, that's it, yeah. We don't need to live under it,
right?
Because we have freedom of choice.
Yeah.
So we can join a community assembly. The problem at the moment is that the community assemblies don't have everything. We have a community peace service. So we have people that are trained up in the law. They are appointed by the people, which actually puts them over and above the police. And but we work. We respect that the police need to know what we're doing. So if we're going anywhere, we tell the police that we're going to be there. If we're going to be serving notices, we tell the police we're going to be serving notices.
How does that go down with the police?
Fine.
Does it?
Yeah.
I mean, in my last interview, I spoke with a gentleman who had an interesting take, I'll just put it like that, on common law and what the police powers were enabling him, or him and his colleagues, to do. And I think it would be safe to say that he would have no truck with the concepts of natural law. His law was case law or acts and statutes, and that seemed to be it. Based on historical events from threats of menaces from various kings and governments and things.
Mark operates in that side of it, and he's actually being very successful now.
Right.
He's given them a run for the money. We help out wherever we can. If he calls for peace constables to be at a court case as a court auditor, we go in uniform.
In uniform?
We're in uniform, yes. So that the judges know that we're there. We don't try to hide away and sort of try and take notes as best we can. We're open and honest about it all. The people that the police force themselves, we're open and honest with them, and we expect that honesty back.
Do you get it?
For the most part, yes, we do. I've had some interesting conversations with them. I have had to, because I have a higher standing, having been appointed by the people as a peace constable, because I have a higher standing than the police force themselves, who are serving a corporate entity. Then I do have the ability to be able to force the issue if I have to. And I've only had to do it once, and then only just reiterating what they already understood. But I've not had any problems with them. And I mean, we've come to the point now where in demonstrations, if there's demonstrations and they ask us to go and attend their demonstrations, then we do. The police don't, because we tell the police beforehand that we are going to service that demonstration, and they don't turn up. No, we do invite them along.
Gosh, I guess they're too busy watching Twitter in case someone's had a bad thought or something, as the police seem to be allegedly doing. I can't say that's for sure, but that's the story that goes round. It just seems incredible. As this movement, the assemblies grow, more people are involved. The government must feel, and various top people in these corporations must feel that they're going to be under threat. If it's sort of low level, perhaps they can tolerate it at the moment, but there surely will come a point where they're looking down from their, well, they ought to be looking up, of course, but they think they're looking down at people like yourself and the assemblies and think, hang on, we've got to stamp this out, because if this grows, we won't be here.
We're no threat to them. Not as we are at the moment. We don't want to take the government down. Council tax, giving a council tax, for instance, yes, council tax is fraudulent, but not in the council tax itself, as far as I can see, because I don't have enough information, but in the way that they try to force people to take it. So if the council tax say you are obligated to pay, I've seen them use the word obligated, which they can't, because there's no contract. You can't obligate somebody. There is no one is above the law. Everyone is equal under the law. You cannot put an obligation on anyone. They must accept that obligation. So when they try to force somebody to pay council tax, then they are operating illegally. Now, there's a little bit of a thing between illegal and unlawful. I tend to, when I've been into the courts, they tend to use both terms. From what I can see in the courts themselves, unlawful and illegal, the way that they use it is, if you trespass on somebody's land, that's unlawful. If you start picking up rocks and throwing them at somebody's windows, that's illegal. That's criminal damage. So the courts themselves use the term slightly differently.
Right. Okay. So that's that's not helpful at all, I suppose.
Not for no, it isn't. So, but it is very much interchangeable in the courts. As far as we are concerned, we're acting unlawfully, not illegally, because we're not supposed to cause criminal damage of any sort. So we tend to use the word unlawful. If they try to force an obligation onto you, then they're operating illegally, because you can't do that. That's part of contract law. So what they do is that they send out a letter to you. The first thing we do, let me take you through the process. This is the community assembly, is what we do. Okay, so we've simplified everything as much as we possibly can so that people understand it. I'm taking everything down to the basics. The council send out a demand. Okay, a bill, whatever you want to call it. You run right back to them saying, I'm sorry, but this is not acceptable to me. I would like to look at your services and your costs so that I might determine which services I want and which services I don't.
Right, which is reasonable.
That's the first letter that goes back to them. And it's reasonable in that would you walk into a supermarket? I nearly mentioned a name then. Would you walk into a supermarket and a person at the door says, okay, you can come in here, but you've got to buy one of everything on every single shelf?
Exactly. No. It wouldn't.
It doesn't work that way. So it doesn't, the logical mind does not, cannot say that council tax has any lawful basis. It can't be.
And just on that point, if I may interject, because I don't want to stop your flow, but one of the things that it seems to me is there's a number of people sort of saying, oh, it's a scam, you don't have to pay it, so these are how you don't pay it. And it seems to me that in natural law, if you're not doing any harm, part of that is to contribute to your society.
Correct.
And that actually just to say, oh, because I don't have to pay anything, I'm going to opt for that option. And so therefore, you're not actually helping the community. It's just you may not want to pay the bill as they've worked it out, as you eloquently put there about with your example of the supermarket, and go, hold on a minute, I'm not using half these services, and also he's on a very large salary for I don't know what he does. So you've had no negotiation on what you're contributing to. So and I know I do have a gentleman coming on in a week or so's time who's found another ruse on how to not pay the council tax, and I want to put that to him and say, well, first of all, Should we just discuss whether we should be contributing something rather than just finding the loophole to not pay anything?
That's correct. Yes, that's the reason for the first letter. Let
Right.
me know what your services are, what the costs are, so I may choose which ones that I want to use.
And how does that go down with the councils?
We never get a reply.
Oh, really?
They send out a standard letter which says that we must pay because of the Local Government Finance Act of 1992, which actually says you have they can create a liability. Now, if they can create a liability on us, we then have to accept that liability. So that's the first part of their contract. That's their half of the contract. We can't, if you accept that and just start to pay, well, that's fine. They get away with it. But if you go back to them and say, right, I can't accept what you just told me, I need more. So they then send out a standard letter which talks about the Local Government Finance Act of 1992 and quote that as their precedent. Now, Mark Horn, God bless him, has formulated a rebuttal for that. It's taken. He's had a few attempts at it, and the latest one that he's got is very, very good. It's very good. It nails them down to answer every single question that we put to them, and it literally rips the 1992 Act apart. So you get that letter back, you then put in your rebuttal, and they then have 2 months to reply to you. We've not had a reply so far, so therefore our rebuttal stands. So at that point, what happens is that they then take you to their court, and the court issues a liability order. Hold on, the court has just said what the council tax already know is that they can create a liability. It hasn't said, I'm going to create an obligation onto you, because they can't do that. So you're still in the same point. The fact that they've taken it to court means that you're no further on whatsoever, and you still have no obligation to pay.
Right. And you've made the statement that you're happy to pay, only you need,
exactly.
You want to negotiate this.
Yeah, I want my bins emptied, thanks very much. I'm happy to pay for that. I'm certainly not happy to pay for the police. God bless them, even though that a lot of them are decent people. I'm still not happy to pay for them because they're paid by a corporation, or they're employed by a corporation. Yes. The corporation should pay for them. So I'm there's some things which I'm happy to contribute to, and some things which I am not. I'm never going to use anything to do with the National Health Service. I don't use the National Health Service. And if I ever did need the National Health Service, I would pay for it on the spot, the same as I do for my dentist.
Right. No, not everyone would have that luxury, though, to be able to, if they broke a leg and then turn up and say, actually, how much is that to repair my leg? Oh, £1,000. I haven't got £1,000.
Yeah, you do have the option to pay it over a certain period of time. They don't say you've got to pay it there and then.
Right.
I've had to do it myself. And you still have to do it now, because I broke a leg. Typical youngster, motorcycle, going too fast around a corner. I broke a leg.
Your own, presumably.
Yes. I broke my motorcycle as well.
Oh, bless.
that was really terrible. I was
going to say, you were more upset about that.
I was, yes. In fact, I didn't even know I'd broken my leg because I was too busy carrying the motorcycle because it bounced into the middle of the road, and I was too busy carrying the motorcycle out of the road so nobody else would hit it before I realised that I'd broken the leg. Yeah, it's incredible what we can do at times.
Mm.
So the point in all this is, we do have a fund in the community assemblies. People donate money. Sometimes they do it so much per month. Sometimes they donate it in lump sums. It doesn't go to the people. It goes to providing services.
Right.
So if somebody wants treatment and they can't afford it, then they just ask us, and say that they can't afford treatment from this person, and we pay that person. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. It's the same when we're training peace constables. We have a fund for that, so that we can go off and train new peace constables, and that doesn't come out of our own pockets. The website is slightly different. It costs a fortune to run. You probably know things like that yourself.
Mm.
And maintaining one that size is very, very costly.
If
So
this system grows, let me ask this, because a skeptical person, have to ask these sort of questions, but a skeptical person would say, let's say this grows into very big, and everyone's understands it, and people donate, and there are the peace officers and all of this. Knowing human nature and knowing how governments have become corrupt, presumably corruption almost certainly is going to sort of, even though you're very spiritual and most of you are all going to be following natural law, there's inevitably going to be somebody who misinterprets that or has a slightly psychopathic bent that hasn't been noticed or whatever. But people get into positions of so-called power. How do you prevent that from happening, and what can you do if somebody's wielding more importance than is desirable?
we can't prevent it from happening because we have to be open to all.
Right.
We can't lay down rules which cause people to not be included. The assemblies themselves, because the people meet, so the assemblies are running themselves because people meet. These people soon get sussed out.
So when you say that, it just suddenly reminded me. It's a bit like how the Saxons would meet at a moot point,
Mm-hmm.
on a mound, on a moot mound, and then they would discuss things in the open.
Yeah.
So it wasn't secret.
Yes.
Presumably that was the reason, that people could just join and listen to the decisions and the problems of the day. As so and so's sheep seems to have some sort of weird head jolting movement, and it's catching on, and what can we do about it? Or there's somebody is rustling away our cows, or whatever it is, in those environments. So presumably that's just suddenly occurred to me. That's exactly the process that you're implementing, which is very old and very tried and tested.
It goes back a very long way. One of the people that we is actually that we follow to a certain extent is the Alfred the Great, because he has now, I think, that I remember somebody saying that John Smith brought this up recently about the 100. You can have 100 people standing shoulder to shoulder, have certain rights because they're all in agreement.
Right.
Actually, it is 100, 300, and 600. And you get more rights as you get bigger, your group gets bigger. But you have to have those people standing shoulder to shoulder. They have to demonstrate their loyalty to that part of whatever it is that they're talking about or whatever they're trying to do. We have a declaration in the offing at the moment, which is being put together for us, actually by the Maoris, where they are rather they're sort of in the same state as the Cornish, who are Cornwall is not part of the UK. Cornwall is part of the British Isles. So in theory, really, although most people accept it, in theory, we don't have to accept anything that Westminster sends out because we're not part of England and we're not part of the UK.
I'm reading a book, funnily enough, about the Duchy of Cornwall, and it goes into the history of this. Not that I've managed to retain all that information, but yes, it explains how Cornwall is not actually part of the UK.
That's right. Yes. We've got our own historian as well, by the way. So, we make sure we got one of everybody if we can.
Yeah.
If there's ever a flood, we'll have Noah's Ark built and we'll get them in one by one, not two by two. We haven't got that many at the moment.
All right. Single file.
Single file only, yeah.
Yeah, just as
quick. But we have... it is a unique position, and this is why I think the Community Assembly is starting to hear in Cornwall, because we have a slightly unique perspective on things. The energies down in Cornwall are very much different than they are anywhere else. we've had a lot of people coming to Cornwall over the last 20 years who, a lot of them, to start with, didn't understand why they were coming to Cornwall, but they're now
Right.
all in the community assemblies, so they now found their place. Um, a lot of very spiritual people, but spiritual, um, you're spiritual, I'm spiritual. It doesn't mean that we believe in any one thing, but we know that there is something that is higher than us.
Yes. At the moment, it's my ceiling, but I know what you mean. No, no. Sorry, I was very flippant. Um, Absolutely, yes. And I think more and more people at this particular time, and I keep saying this, I've never known a time in which, because of the oppression and the tyrannical government in the way things are being forced to the population here in England and across the world, and the decisions that are being made by a very small minority who've never been voted for, I think people are waking up to all sorts of different aspects of life, spiritualism being one of them, or the spiritual nature of life, and as well as natural law and all these things, and asking these very fundamental questions, which, when we've been very busy and life has just been tolerable, we've not really had to address. But I think people are now very much addressing this, and slowly it's percolating out that more and more people are doing that. Do you find that?
Yes, where people, a lot of people at the moment, there's almost a stages of waking up. And what we're finding at the moment is there's a lot of people. I'll give you an example of this that you probably know that a lot of people are chasing around saying we have a constitution. There's an English constitution. Um, Now, I've never seen an English constitution, never heard of one before now. Where did it suddenly come from? But a lot of people are following this and quoting this, and there's a lot of what I would call red herrings around that they seem to be there to divert people away from their natural progression. So um, there's a lot of people that are going around with common law. Well, common law is actually part of judicial law. It's interwoven in there, so knowing common law is a great thing. But people only need to know where to find their occupational expert. I'm quoting City and Guilds of London Institute here, because they're great on their occupational expert. You don't need to know it, you just need to know where to find the answers. I've seen a lot of people that have been spending an inordinate amount of time trying to learn common law. Most of these people have been doing it for 15, 20 years. So they know it inside out. And those are your occupational experts. We don't need to spend the next 15 or 20 years learning common law. We just need to know where to find it. Our job is to put the assemblies together so that when one person finds an answer, it goes to everybody.
Right. Yes, and that makes sense. So could you just explain then? You just said that there's, and we've heard this, and I have to say I've done a terrible job myself of, as I'm on the path of learning and bringing people like you to help me learn as well as the audience. What is there's differences between what you might call God's law, natural law, common law. Could you just quickly give us sort of the separation of these definitions?
Well, common law, you've got an awful lot of them. There's an awful lot of definitions and there's a lot to learn. Natural law, here's your total understanding of natural law, and God's law is exactly the same. Do no harm, commit no fraud, cause no loss, and keep the peace. There it is. Here endeth the first lesson.
There is no more. Yeah, cool. That was hard work. I have to go and have a sit down now in a darkened room with a large bottle of rum just to make get over that. So just say that again. Do no harm. Do no fraud.
Harm, cause no loss.
Cause no loss.
Commit no fraud.
Yeah.
And keep the peace. Now, really, the first three can be lumped under do no harm.
Yes. That's why I always struggle to remember what the others are, because they sort of go, well, I know it's do no harm. And
yeah.
It's like, have cause no loss.
Yeah. What you're doing harm if you cause a loss.
Yes.
If you're committing fraud, you're doing a harm. So really and truthfully, you can put it down to two.
Yeah.
We are each charged with keeping the peace. It's not so easy to follow as you think.
I bet
Um,
it's not.
but it's a learning process which people go through as time goes by. So they park their car on the street. Have they actually blocked somebody in? Are they giving somebody enough room to get out of their driveway?
Mm.
Okay, so that's things that you have to start turning your thoughts to: am I causing harm, or am I causing loss? Am I committing fraud?
Yes.
Okay, if you if you contribute to council tax, and you know that they are committing fraud in trying to force you to give up your money, are you then committing fraud because you are contributing to their coffers?
Well, yes, that's it. You're keeping the scam going if it's a scam.
Exactly.
If you know differently, then I guess it's your humble duty to let other people know that it's not right, and
And
to be honourable to all parties by not abiding, I guess.
that's right. Yes, you've still got to stick to certain rules, because you've still got to offer to contract with them and to negotiate a contract with them. And your terms are quite simple, that you want to pay for the services that you're using, and
You
that is
said
the honourable way.
you said earlier that you didn't want to overturn the government,
No.
and you want to work with the government. How do you work with a government that is, as we've seen recently, not not working as a government as most people would, if they were to describe how the government is supposedly working, in which we have representation, and you go to your MP and you say, "Oh look, I've got this problem. I wonder if you should mention this in the House of Commons." People have taken some sort of medical intervention, and people have had some rather nasty effects, and then the person goes to the House of Commons and either doesn't do it, like so many of these MPs refuse to sort of speak on certain issues, or does do it and everybody else clears off because they don't want to hear the message. So it seems that the government aren't serving the people, and then they're also coming up with, hey, what about these ideas? This would be good. We'll just try and get some more money out of them if we put cameras everywhere, and every time people walk about, well, we'll call it, saving the planet. If you've got a government that is rogue, shall we say, how do you work with a government that it is like that?
No, we don't want to work with the government. We just don't want to bring them down. You've got to go back to your laws again. If people are happy with the government as it is, and there are a lot of people that want to stay within that because they feel as if they're being protected, if you try to bring them down, then you have. Sorry, somebody was at the door.
That's all right.
So
Do you need to go and?
No, I just went on.
Sorry, I'm being
I'm on the phone.
interviewed. Yes.
They know. Oh dear, what was that one? Okay. The thing with it is that if we try to bring the government down, then those people who feel secure with the government, we are harming them, and we can't do any harm.
Right. Okay.
So we can't bring the government down. Doesn't mean to say that we've got to work with them. We could say that, there's certain services we would like to contract with you for, and the community assemblies aren't rich enough to be able to go out and buy loads of lorries to take away your rubbish. So we would have to contract with them to take our rubbish away. People could do it themselves, but then what if they haven't got a car? What if they can't take it to the dump? What if, we have to think of people like that. So all the time you have to think of everything that you're doing. And this is what makes natural law, God's law, so difficult to work with, in that you have to think.
Presumably,
We've got a brain.
Yeah, and absolutely. I was going to say, presumably, reasoned argument is what will eventually make tyrannical governments irrelevant if people are able to see the frauds, see where they're being dictated to and don't actually have a choice. And your reasoned arguments will say, look, you can have that. It's entirely up to you if you want to be monitored by cameras and everywhere you go, blah, blah, blah. But over here, we're working on ways where we don't have to worry about that, because natural law comes into play, and they can fine us if they like, but we there's this mechanism that we have that says, thanks very much, but I don't think we contracted to be filmed or contracted to limit our progress here and there.
That's it.
And so presumably, people would come to that conclusion.
Yeah, you've got one other thing that comes into play here, and that even a law, laws and acts and legislation, they're all different. But a law, which is basically termed as your birthright, even a law can come under question if you apply your mind to it and it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So you can get rid of laws if they make no sense. Now, it could be that a law was put together in 1066 or anything else other than that, but doesn't apply anymore.
Yes.
So if your logical mind says, look, that has nothing to do with modern day life or living, can you prove that it has anything at all other than it's still on the statute books? And you can challenge it that way.
Yeah. So when this is the problem, isn't it? We've got law and we've got legislation.
Yeah.
And it can get confusing when we're talking about natural law and then what's legal, isn't it? That's one of the issues, because you can get wrapped up. So what's your opinion then, or do you work with trial by jury?
Yes, because we have the community courts, and we've had a few of those as well. This is where we have to train people up, and again, where we need experts to help us make this work. But we are courts of record.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Which is the important thing.
That's right. Yes.
Because my understanding is magistrates' courts are not of record. They don't record it.
No, they don't.
Which a lot of people would find a bit weird.
And a magistrate court can only deal with law.
Right.
We can't deal with civil matters. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so when somebody wants to charge you council tax, that's a civil matter. Why are they going to the magistrates' court?
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. Why do they? It's part of the scam.
I don't know, because they're rubber stamping it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But is that because they actually are not really going under there because the magistrate's not under oath?
That's right. So even if you attend there, you will, even if you put your rebuttal in and you attend the magistrate's court, and you say that have they received and have they reviewed the rebuttal that we put in? Is there a rebuttal of our rebuttal from the council? They will say no, and then right at the end of it, they will say we are satisfied that the law has been upheld, and that the council, and you must pay your council tax. It doesn't matter about the law as far as they're concerned. They're not following the law.
Right.
The law.
Yeah.
If you put a rebuttal in and it's well argued, and they have to answer it, and then you can put your rebuttal in again on their answer, then what's that's the way things should be followed. They're not doing that. They're completely ignoring it.
So to go back to your court of record, the trial by jury that you're setting up. So you're setting up these courts.
Yeah.
Which is a court of record.
Yeah.
And so how does that work for people? I mean, what I'm getting to is, will the law of the land, or the legal system, I should say, it's trying to keep these terms clear for people can follow them. Does the legal system as it stands now accept the decisions that you are putting that come about as a result of the trial by jury, that sort of an assembly jury or assembly trial? Do they accept?
Well, what should happen is, or what does happen is that that our records then are taken to the courts themselves to be recorded.
Right. Oh, okay.
Okay, that's all there is to that part of it. When it comes to getting anything done, if we take it along to the police force and say this person needs to be arrested because this person needs to give restitution or whatever, and we're going to need help with this, then they will turn around and say no. They don't cooperate on that level, which is why we really need our own people out there. We've got too few at the moment. We're hoping to recruit more. The As far as the effectiveness of the courts so far, we have achieved an effect in that councillors have been dismissed.
Right.
So,
So these are more civil matters. They're not criminal matters.
no, they're not.
No. Yeah. So I'm just because the thought of somebody getting somebody violent into because they'll go to a proper Crown Court or criminal court, whatever it is, anyway.
Yeah.
Presumably, and it's not your place, I guess, at this stage to operate that system, because a violent person's not going to hang around by a few nice people.
Yeah, you have a point again in natural law where you a jury can try a person, however, they can't take anything away from them. They have to get that person, if they're found guilty, they have to make restitution. So it's a little bit difficult, and you can't get anybody locked up.
Right.
Okay, but you can get satisfaction from them in some sort of way, that as long as you get some sort of satisfaction out of it. And where we had people dismissed from the council and that sort of thing actually going on, then that gave comfort to the people that had been wronged.
Although you could argue you've taken his job away if you've been dismissed.
Yes. That wasn't us that was taking it away, if you like.
Right.
Okay. We put the case to the council. The council were involved in, our decision making. So they made the decision as far as that is concerned. But you have to also think that if that person stayed in their job, would they harm more people?
Yes. Well, if they're going to perpetuate the frauds of council tax and things like that without giving you a chance to negotiate, excuse me, we're running out of time. So just sort of pull this in. What's the big picture here? I mean, if you were able to project into the future of so many years, whatever it is, what would be the aim and ambition for the assemblies?
If I could do that, the aim and the ambition is it's never going to be taking over anything. It's just to give people back their decision making, so they've got control over their lives again. Like I said, we don't actually do anything other than people say that they want this done or that done, and then we try to actually do it. So our ambition is governed by the people, what the people want. We had a recent referendum with regards to the Assemblies of the World, which we've now created, and we're working on the website now. The Assemblies of the World, we had to ask if we could make these because it wasn't within our remit. We got for those people that actually replied to the question, yes or no, can you tell us what you want it? We had 1% say no because they thought we were trying to take over the world again, and they've got a valid point there. So we've had to change what we do on the website, or we've had to change our emphasis on the website to say we're not trying to do that. We're trying to link people together.
Yes.
But we had 22% return say yes, they were for it. Now, we don't work on a constitution. We don't have a constitution. We're a private members association. We are there for the members. The members make their own rules and regulations. And this might be, somebody described us as a chaos, the perfect chaos. And it is chaotic sometimes, but in actual fact, synchronicity takes over, and very much people adopt a single way of operating, a single way of living. And because we're keeping everybody in touch with everybody else, so one person finds something out down the road, and then within a week, everybody in the world that's part of the assemblies knows about it because it's been shipped out.
Yes.
It also helps to protect people, because if there's wrongdoing in one country, it gets transmitted to others.
Is it? I'm just going to try to formulate my words here. Does this work at this stage where we are now with the chaos of the world anyway, better in smaller, tight-knit communities so that everyone's on board, like villages and small towns, if they understand it all, their overall community can work quite well. Whereas in a city, you've got such a mix of all sorts of people, whether they're coming in and they're coming out, and there's some people in the daytime, some people at the night, some people do live there, some people don't, in which it's such a fraught environment. Is it better that it works in smaller communities that are physically located together?
Yes. And when it comes to metropolitan areas, they have to be divided up so that you get down to smaller and smaller villages. So that everybody, once you get to a village size where everybody, or a local assembly size, where everybody knows what everybody else is doing, then you pretty much reach your target. So at the moment we have, for instance, Community Assembly of Salisbury. Let's say it's a medium-sized town, but that could be split down even more. And Salisbury is actually growing quite well. They're doing a lot of good stuff up there. Yorkshire has had to change the way they've changed the way that their assemblies are formed up. So instead of having Yorkshire as the main assembly, Yorkshire is an overall communications device, but then you've got the ridings coming in. So they split the Yorkshire down into the ridings, and those ridings are part of the community assemblies, and they become the regional assemblies. So, if you like, Yorkshire's just become a country.
Right. How does it? How do you cope with, say, as we have a multicultural society now with lots of different enclaves, I suppose, or groups of societies who have different backgrounds, cultures, traditions, who may have different hierarchies within their religious traditions, shall we say? How does getting over the natural law concept work with perhaps certain societies that have a more top-down, tiered, or however they're set up situation?
Yeah, if they want a top-down society, then they can carry on as they are. We're not a top-down society.
No.
We live it as it's a bottom-up, and that really isn't bottom-up because you've got to turn it upside down, so it's still top-down, but it's just the mass of people are on the top.
Yes.
Inverted
pyramid.
That's right. Yeah, it works extremely well. We thought there were going to be a lot of problems. There isn't. If there is a problem anywhere, somebody gets on the phone. We have a central unit for dealing with that. Again, we're the pig's belly. We're the lowest of the low, but we have to work day and night sometimes to actually get things to work, get things to go. If everybody accepts what the situation, then as far as we're concerned, there's not a problem. If they've got if they want leaders, then they don't want us.
Right.
And it's the same with the people that want to come into the community assemblies. If they want to come in just to take information from us, then they might as well just use the website. They don't need to be registered with us.
Yes.
Okay, they might get a newsletter, but they can get all the information they need. Even the newsletters they can get from the website. They just have to wait for a few days for it to go up there. We're not interested in people who want to take. We're interested in people who want to give.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Why would you want just people who are going to grab it and go and not carry the ethos with them, or maybe do their own thing? We're coming up to an hour. I don't like really to sort of make these last too long because people see the time and they think, oh, blimey, that's a long time. John, it's been an absolute pleasure to delve into what you're doing and the assemblies. People presumably, if they're itching to find out more, can access the website and where we saw on the thing, it said join, find out more information. I'll put the link in the description. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Richard, for doing this.
Well, it's my pleasure, and hopefully it's answered a load more questions. But I guess there's tons of questions to be answered on the website.
It's actually raised a whole load as well. So,
Oh, good. Oh, well, there we are. I'm sorry about that. I've just doubled your workload.
yeah.
But never mind. It's all well. That's all. It's all good, isn't it? It's like science, isn't it? If you can't ask questions about a thing, your hypothesis is finding answers that somebody else is going to ask these questions.
We need people to ask questions.
Brilliant.
That's the only way we can cover everything.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, John, thank you so much for talking to me and the audience. As I say, links in the description. I will be back with more interesting contributors and guests to forensically question as best I can. But in the meantime, down there in, is it sunny Cornwall?
Yes.
Fantastic. It's I think that where I am in Worthing, it's sunny. So that's the country has got some sunshine, which is what we need. Thank you so much, John. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, from John and I, goodbye.